Look at him run. No good, he missed it. Are you kidding me? Touchdown. He did what? There are no flags on the field. It's a miracle. Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. That's got a chance. That is good. It's good. Holy Toledo. Throws to the back of the end zone, and it is caught. Kick is on the way, and it is good. It's good. It's good.
Welcome back to the Fifth and Long podcast with Patrick DeMarre, Paul the Commissioner, Kashack and EJ, Dr. Locks, Mastronardi. No Paul on this episode. It's just EJ and I for this one. But we're going to come back with another episode this week where it will just be Paul and I. So Paul gets his little vacation, his little break from the show. EJ gets his. Where are you going for vacation, by the way? I don't know if I asked you.
Going to Martha's Vineyard, the yearly family vacation.
I did ask you that, or you did tell us, I think last time you were recording. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You should have a
Really
great time.
excited. Yeah.
This is the time of year to be there.
Yeah, hopefully some good weather.
Hopefully. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming at you to talk a little bit of fantasy football. The NFL calendar is dangerously close. We're less than 50 days away from opening night. Less than 50 days away from NFL Red Zone being back on our screens on Sunday as well. Can't wait for that. So, of course, your fantasy drafts are coming up even sooner. Our league hasn't drafted yet. We'll probably draft like a month or so from now, a little bit closer as we get to the start of September. But I would assume that some folks maybe are gearing up for some early drafts that will kick off at the start of August, if that's your jam, so to speak. So EJ and I today are here to cover some of our favorite stayaways or least favorite stayaways, depending on how you look at it, and our favorite sleepers in the drafts. And what we did was for stayaways, we said, pick anybody, just someone you're really trying to avoid drafting this year at each offensive position. So quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And for our sleepers, we picked outside of average draft position, top 10, basically. I went off of ESPN's ADP. EJ, did you go off the same?
I'm using Fantasy Pros, and it kind of gives you ESPN, Yahoo, CBS, so I can go off ESPN.
Okay, either one works because Fantasy Pros does like kind of mix them all together. You're probably better off using that tool because it does give you, like you were saying, an overview of where all the draft sites are drafting players and how folks are feeling about those guys. So I'm going to use ESPN, but you can use whatever you like. I'm just using ESPN because that's typically the site that I play fantasy on. And if you are curious how to find these, you can pretty much just search ADP fantasy football, and you should come up with a bevy of results to see where players are being drafted in leagues across the world. ESPN's page is under ESPN.com/football/live draft results. And you can sort by position. It shows you salary cap drafts, snake drafts. So it's pretty cool. Very, very useful tool that I got into, I think, like 2 or 3 years ago, right? This didn't used to be that detailed.
I know.
It's changed a lot in the last couple of years. All right, EJ, you're the guest today. We're going to start with quarterbacks here. Maybe not necessarily the most important position in fantasy, but it is the most important position classically on the football field. So I want to hear right off the bat who your stay away pick is for the year 2025. And I want to, when you mention him, make sure you obviously mention where his ADP is as well.
Yep. My stay away is the guy down in Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield.
Ooh.
And actually, conveniently enough, he is number 7 on everyone's ESPN, Yahoo, CBS, Sleeper, RT Sports. So he's a straight 7 across the board. He's the 7th quarterback being drafted And the reason I say that is because I just don't see, obviously, Godwin, we just found out he's not going to be ready for the start of training camp. He's going to be on the PUP list. Mike Evans is a year older, and yes, he can still make those jump ball plays, but his route running's gotten a little bit sloppier per se throughout the years. And you look at someone like Emeka Abuga, and Ohio State wide receivers haven't been known for jumping off the screen year one. So I definitely expect some growing pains from him coming into the NFL. I just think that this team's going to be a lot more run heavy. Obviously, we saw Bucky Irving show off the second half of last year. They still have Rashad White, who they do cherish a little bit. So I think this is going to be a more run heavy scheme. They have options besides those wide receivers I named. Obviously, they have Jalen McMillan, Sterling Shepard, shout out New York Giants. But for some reason, I just see regression coming from Baker, at least in the passing standpoint. He could make up for that maybe with some goal line runs, take it himself and score some touchdowns to make up some points there. But at least 7, I see some other quarterbacks that I would take over him. So that's why I went with Baker. You're on mute.
Baker, I'll be honest, I did not expect you to pick him. You heard my shock right when you announced the pick. And it's actually not a bad choice here because last year he set career highs in fantasy points, passing touchdowns, passing yards. Like he had a career year, even rushing yards. He had a career year in as well. He's going to have his 3rd offensive coordinator in as many seasons. I guess technically 4 if you look at it. If you look at the season that he had prior to being in Tampa, but he wasn't obviously the full-time starter in Carolina for that whole year. I want him to do well, and he's in a contract year. Like I don't think the offense is going to fall apart. I think a lot of people actually have Tampa as maybe sneaky NFC championship contenders or NFC conference championship contenders. Like they could at least play in that game potentially and maybe threaten the Eagles, which wouldn't surprise me. But can you really bet on him to continue essentially the best football of his career? Like if he just drops off a little bit, there's going to be some regression. He could play 90% of what his potential is, still be a like high end QB2 and not meet that expectation of when you're drafting the 7th overall quarterback in fantasy, especially in salary cap leagues. Like if you're paying the same price for Baker as you are for a Mahomes or a Hurts. Hurts is probably a better example of that, or maybe even maybe Burrow. I guess you're probably drafting those guys higher, but like I think that they're like if you want to look at options that maybe have lower ceilings, but also higher or lower floors, but also higher ceilings, I wouldn't blame you for lower prices, like a Justin Fields, like a Brock Purdy, like a Dak Prescott, even as well. Yeah, I get where you're going with that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it was a career year for him last year, and you just look at the QBs that are below him, and you're just like, all of these guys have the ability to outdo Baker, and they have more talent around him. So that was kind of my thinking on it. I'm just like, why risk another year of Baker? It is his contract year, but I think this offense might just be going a different route as well, obviously with the new offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Godwin's going to be slow to get back. They have a new offensive coordinator. Tristan Wirfs is going to be out for the first month of the season at least. That's one of the best tackles in football right there. I get where you're going with it. I love Baker, so it would be sad to see him regress, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, and it won't be a terrible regression. Like I still think he's going to get paid this offseason, but
right.
At least statistically speaking, if they get the wins, he'll get paid.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so my pick for quarterback stay away, I'm going to go with Kyler Murray. And I will preface this by saying I don't think the Cardinals are going to go like 4-13. Like I think they could be a 500 team again this year. And I think you could see Kyler Murray have a similar kind of season to where he had last year. He finished as the QB 12 in fantasy points per game last season and had, in some cases, a career year. And you may even say he's set up to do even better than that this year. But to me, the issue is in consistency. Like if you're playing best ball and you draft Kyler Murray, you're probably going to be okay. But week to week, he is so up and down with the kind of performances that you're getting from him that I just don't find him reliable at all. He had 5 top 5 quarterback performances last year, and he had 9 performances where he finished as quarterback 15 or worse. So you are more likely to get a below average quarterback than you are anything else, which isn't great. There's also injury issues. Last year, he played a full season for the first time in a while. He played back-to-back full seasons in his rookie year and his second season. So perhaps we can see him do that again for the first time since then. But I don't know, man. I think it's just as likely that we see more injury issues or that we see the same inconsistencies that we've watched week to week for years.
Agreed. You look at every season he's played at least 14 games in, he's thrown at least 10 interceptions. So it's definitely the consistency piece you brought up. And, I was never a big Kyler Murray fan. I probably dog him one of the most on the show. So um, unless he can prove a lot this year, and I feel like it's not just to him, it's also to the organization. I mean, the organization, I feel like, is starting to have their doubts on him as well. So he needs to prove a lot. He has a lot on his shoulders this year. And I feel like he has the talent on the outsides and obviously at tight end to do it. It's just going to be for him being able to put it all together and not making those mental errors.
That's a great point, though. You are essentially counting on Trey McBride to be a top 5 receiver and for Marvin Harrison Jr. to be a top 20 receiver at their respective positions. And even with that, which he had last year, Kyler Murray was only just barely a low end or a high end QB2. Like if either of those guys drop off, if you see a little bit of a slump for Marvin Harrison Jr. coming into this year, if he doesn't take off like people expect, or if Trey McBride is a little banged up at any point in the season, that production is going to go down for Kyler. He is QB9 right now as far as ADP goes on ESPN. He may be somewhere else on other platforms, but to me, I think there are guys underneath him that you will get much more value with. Much more value with. Should we segue to those quarterback sleepers now?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. I kind of want to go first here. What do you think about snaking? All right. Yeah, let's do it. I'm picking Dak Prescott, and I might have stolen your pick here. We talked about him a lot.
You stole my pick.
I knew it. That's why I wanted to go first because I knew we would do this. Yeah, we talked about him a lot last week, and I was thinking about it some more. I see him as QB 14 right now on ESPN's boards, and I don't understand why. He, like, being honest about the situation, the last 4 or 5 years, he's pretty much traded a fully healthy top 10, top 5 fantasy quarterback season with an injury-riddled season where he's like not even in the top 25 or 30 or whatever, back-to-back years for 4 or 5 years straight. But when he is healthy, he is a guaranteed top 10 quarterback. I think his worst finish is 11th in his career when he plays a full season. And you might even get a top 5 or top 2 or 3 quarterback performance from him. So to me, him going as 14 right now under guys like Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray, Bo Nix, it does not make any sense. And it's really just injury related. I think also probably has something to do with he does play for America's team, and anybody who is not a fan of the Cowboys loves to hate on the Cowboys, loves to see them lose. But to me, this is a no-brainer at 14. Like you could get easily a high-end QB2. More likely you're getting a low-end QB1, but there's a possibility that you get a quarterback who could be a league winner for you or put you in a great position to do so. Like if you're picking at the top of the draft, you can take CeeDee Lamb and then you can probably wait until the 4th or 5th round and get Dak as well.
Agreed. And, you look back at 2 years ago, he was second in the MVP race. So he was playing his best football. Obviously, this injury made it different for him last year. Now people are kind of doubting him as he gets into, I think he's going to be 33 this year, his age 33 season. Pat, you might want to check me on that. But you look at the weapons he had 2 years ago, and then you look at the weapons he had now, and I think it's kind of upgrades throughout the board. Maybe offensive line's the only one that you can be a little skeptical about, but obviously that first round pick they had with that guard from Bama kind of solidified that again. I think their run game's going to be really good. They have two number one receivers on the outside, along with I think it's Turpin, who's their slot receiver. I think, and they have Ferguson, who's going into his contract year. I think he's going to have a good year as well. So I think this team has all the potential to be a top offense in the league, and Dak has shown that he can do it before, and there's no reason to, coming off an injury, he's going to be presumably fully healthy. There's no reason why he can't do it again.
Dak Prescott turns 32 1 week from today exactly, July 29th.
32 season.
Yeah.
1 year off.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, last year he was QB4 in fantasy points per game, or not last year, but 2023. 7th in yards per attempt, 8th in completion percentage over expected. He was an MVP candidate. This is a guy who, if he's healthy, you can rely on him. But can he be healthy? I don't know. That's the question.
Yeah, well, like I said, you took mine.
You got a backup? If not, I've got somebody else we can talk about.
No, I got a backup. Of course I do.
Okay.
It's actually going to another guy we talked a lot about our last episode. It's Justin Fields.
Okay.
And the reason I am taking Justin Fields is because for a fantasy standpoint, he's the perfect quarterback. He's that guy that's going to get you 70, 80 rushing yards, maybe a rushing touchdown, and he has the deep ball, which obviously 20-plus yard passes can be beneficial in certain leagues. Obviously, he has the running back to fall down to with Braylon Allen and Breece Hall for those screen passes. He has one of the best wide receivers in Garrett Wilson, who they just locked up a little bit. Still has Josh Reynolds, Allen Lazard. He has wide receiver options over there. And I think this offensive line is going to be a little bit more improved than last year. So I think Justin Fields, he has a lot to prove to himself. Like I said, that contract was 2 years. And this is kind of his time to shine. And, running quarterbacks always have a luxury in fantasy, and the biggest drawback is if they're going to play all 17 games, because usually those rushing quarterbacks get benched. So I guess that would be his biggest drawback. But if you're looking for the most upside out of these quarterbacks, you're looking at obviously Dak Prescott's right there next to him, Herbert, Stroud, Love, May. Fields is going to give you the most running opportunities, and that's going to be rushing touchdowns, which obviously account more than passing touchdowns. So that's why I had to fall back to Justin Fields. I think he's going to have a very nice fantasy season. I don't know how well his season's going to be looking at stats, but at least fantasy wise, it will look nice.
It's a great pick. I don't necessarily know how I feel about the Jets competitively this year, but when it comes to Justin Fields in fantasy, if they're an uncompetitive team, that's better for him and better for his fantasy owners, because they're going to be passing the ball a lot, trying to move the ball down the field, which in turn probably results in him running some more as well. ESPN has him as QB 13 right now. And if you look into his history as a quarterback, 2023, he finished as QB 17. So that's or QB 18. I'm sorry. So that is his floor, let's say. That was pretty rough year in Chicago. He was running for his life a lot. Didn't put up quite the numbers that he did before, where in 2022, he finished as QB 6. He ran for over 1,000 yards, threw for over 3,000 as well. And that is the guy that you are referencing, EJ. No, he did not throw for over 3,000 passing yards. I apologize. He threw for a little bit over 2,000, but still 3,000, 3,500 all-purpose yards as a quarterback, where a third of that is rushing, and you get 8 rushing touchdowns. That's going to add up in fantasy football, and that's why you're bringing him up here.
And you look at the weapons he has with the Jets, and you can argue they're the best weapons he's had throughout his whole career.
Yeah, yep. Garrett Wilson too. That there's a little bit of familiarity there with playing with him in college. And if you look at Garrett Wilson's stats, I'm not going to pick him later as my sleeper receiver, but if you were to do that, I would understand why going along with this, because he is a huge red zone target for them. Like he's going to command their largest target share, and that may go up considering the familiarity that Fields has with him that I just mentioned. So yeah, there's definitely a world where Justin Fields actually plays pretty well above what his ADP is right now in most draft leagues. And I think the worst version that you get of him won't be that much lower than where he is either. Like I think you are at a low end QB2 floor basically, and ceiling you're probably at a low end QB1.
Agreed. If he can figure out that passing, man, 3,000 yards plus, let's say 800, 900 rushing yards, that's probably top 5. So I feel like his ceiling could be even higher.
Great pick, EJ. Great pick.
So I get the first pick of the running back round.
Yeah. Before you do that, I don't want to spend any more than 15 seconds on it, but Geno Smith being 31 ADP right now is a freaking joke. He's a better pick than some of the other guys that are ahead of him right now. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at where's he on mine? For me, he's 26. Yeah, he's 31 on ESPN, but he's 20 on Yahoo.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that makes sense.
The average out is 25. Yeah, I mean, I would put him above people like Penix and Cam Ward just because they have
20 might be kind of low, to be honest. Like,
yeah. I mean, they have JJ McCarthy at like 16 on ESPN. I was like, how are you going to draft a guy you haven't seen anything from yet?
it's just because he's throwing to Jettas. Okay, I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. Yeah, go ahead with your running back pick for stay away.
All right, this is it's kind of an I don't know. Probably get some backlash on it, but I'm going with Saquon. And
Yeah,
obviously he's going number 1. You're looking at a guy who had 345 rushing attempts last year. That's unheard of in today's game.
he had
Add that with
400 plus total touches.
yeah, add that with 33 receptions as well. Like this guy was a bull horse last year. He could not be stopped from anyone, and everyone thought he was going to regress as the season went on, and it looked like he got stronger as the season went on. I just don't see that happening again. Obviously, he's had a ton of injuries in his past with the Giants, and that's a big reason why I'm kind of fading him. But looking at injuries aside, I just think that this offense needs to throw the ball more to keep their wide receivers happy. And I think they want to throw the ball more. They kind of want to get in that way where they don't just run it and do the QB whatever it's called, the tush push.
Tush push. Shane Gillis's favorite play.
Yeah, I think they're gonna change it up a little bit. Besides that, they also have AJ Dillon, so they're kind of looking for that short down running back. Obviously, AJ Dillon missed all of last year with that neck injury, but they have that kind of bullhorse running back to not get Saquon hit as much. So that's going to take away some carries from Saquon. Overall, I mean, I still see Saquon being, if he's healthy all year, a top 5, top 10 back. But I just don't see him at number 1 this year. He could prove me wrong. He proved me wrong last year. I just think, it's hard to bet on a running back doing that 2 years in a row, especially when they're not in their second, third year in the NFL. He's going into his 7th year in the NFL. So that's my fade away.
Okay, yeah, I didn't want to make the pick because I didn't want to be wrong on it, but there is a lot of chatter about people not necessarily fully avoiding Saquon, but just being hesitant towards drafting him for pretty much every reason that you just mentioned. It's typically when guys get over that 400 plus touch plateau, it's not very good for their health the next year. I will say with that, he is in a situation where last year the Eagles were 3rd in the league in yards before contact per carry. So if they're in that top 3, top 5 situation, that does mean that he's getting slightly less wear and tear than you would typically expect from someone in that situation. And if AJ Brown is healthy for a full season, they probably can rely a little bit more on the passing game. The thing with the Eagles is they were up in so many games last year and up big that they were just running out the clock against a lot of teams. And I think Will Shipley, you mentioned AJ Dillon, but Will Shipley would be my handcuff choice from the Eagles as a backup running back, or even a guy who gets some late game touches just to keep Saquon fresh and off his feet a little bit if they can. But yeah, I get your concerns there. And some people are going to think, oh, he's the Giants guy. Like he's just salty, but no, I'm a Zaquan guy, and I'm there with you. Like I get it. I would be even more hesitant because I got burned so bad by my CMC thing last year that I just don't want to relive a similar situation. My choice for running back stay away. This one I think is another one that people have talked about quite a bit. I'm going with Kyren Williams. He is 11th right now on ESPN's ADP board for live draft trends. And he's a little bit of an outlier in today's NFL, just in the sense that like he is a no doubt about it bell cow guy for the Rams. Like most teams nowadays, you see feature tandem backfields to a point, but Williams got like 300 plus touches last year as well. And he's been doing that for a few years now. And last year, especially towards the tail end of the year, you finally started to see the efficiency go down a little bit. I think this year there's a chance that with Puka being back for a whole year, hopefully fully healthy, Devontae being in the mix, that you see LA lean a little bit more into the pass in the red zone. And I also think with them bringing in running backs in back-to-back years in the middle part of the draft, you're going to see Blake Corum get some more touches. You're going to see, I think, Williams be more in like the 250 carry range this season, which if that's the case, he's going to be under a 1,000 yard rusher. You're probably not going to see him walk into the end zone double digit times. You might, but if you're reliant on him to do that, then you are not in a situation that is as advantageous as previous years with Kyren Williams. So to me, I still think, if he's available, say if he's going off the board any later than like 15, 16, you should probably scoop him up. But I would stay away from him as your first choice. And even if you get him as a second guy, I would maybe look into having some insurance there.
Yeah, and I know he was a big talk last year too. Once they announced he was going to be returning punts and kicks, thinking that was going to take away from his overall running back statistics, which it didn't. But yeah, I love that pick too. Obviously, another year in that offense, getting a little older. You want to see a little bit more, in my opinion, and things can happen with that Rams team. I know they're very quick to make the change on running backs, at least in the past. So I like that pick as well.
My turn for sleeper, yeah.
It is yours.
I just spit all over my screen. That was disgusting. Okay, so picking a running back sleeper was tough because once you get past like RB12, RB13, the choices really aren't obvious. Like you kind of see why guys are falling where they are, at least with running backs. But for me, there were two guys that I looked at and my eyes kind of lit up a little bit, or at least I double taked. And they're two guys coming from very different situations. I'll give a slight hat tip to both. The first one, think of as an honorable mention, DeAndre Swift. It's pretty simple. Ben Johnson bump. He's going to be in the Bears system. For all that the Lions did with their pass game last year and Jared Goff and, Ben Johnson making that a big part of the offense and, everybody thinking Colston Loveland and Luther Bird and all these guys, Rome Odunze even are going to go off. What about the Lions running game, man? Their O-line was incredible. What have the Bears focused on bringing in all offseason? Offensive linemen. DeAndre Swift is RB23 right now, and he's finished outside of the top 20, I think, in like 2 or 3 straight seasons. This could be his bounce back year. And I don't necessarily think he'll be an RB1, but he could be like a high-end RB2 in that system. What is Roschon Johnson going to like outpace him in carries? No. Maybe it's
steal the touchdowns.
Yeah, maybe it's like a 50-50 thing like the Lions did, but I think even then, like if that's the case, you could even get both of them. I don't know. It's my real pick here. The guy that I really want to focus on is Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard going as RB19 right now in ESPN live drafts. And last year, he started out the year not really as the starter. It wasn't really until like week 4 or 5, I think, that he really took over. It might have been week 3. I think it was week 4. And after that, he was solid, man. He had several top 10 running back performances in several weeks. It was more than, I think it was like 6, 7, 8, maybe. I can tell you right now. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He had 6 top 10 running back performances last year. Had some bust too, but if he's going into the year as the starter, I think you could see him in a carry range that's closer to 300, which means he's going to get over 1,000 yards. He's probably going to get, he was over 1,000 yards last year and he was only at 250 carries. This is a guy you could see closer to like the 1,500 yard mark with the touchdowns to boot, 10 plus. You're going to see him get some catches. He had 40 plus last year. Maybe that's closer to like 50, 55. If that's the case, he's a low end RB1, and he may even give you a little bit more than that if the Panthers figure things out on offense. Like if Bryce Young takes a leap, Chuba Hubbard probably takes a little bit of a leap with him as well. So it's a multifaceted answer. There's a lot of different reasons why I like Chuba there, but to me, he is firmly the Panthers starting running back this year. That's not going to change probably unless he has a dip in performance and someone else beats him out. But more likely than not, he's going to be the guy in Carolina, and he's probably going to be pretty decent too.
Yeah, I don't hate the pick. The only thing I could see is, I feel like the Panthers like prefer a committee, and that's why they ended up going with Rico Dowdle, who is just coming off a 1,000-yard season with Dallas. Go Cox. But, you got someone like Rico Dowdle behind Chuba. You have Trevor Etienne, obviously Florida State product. There's some guys in that locker room that could take carries away. So I feel like those first few weeks, Hubbard's really going to have to show why he's the main dog. And that's kind of what he's had to do the last 2 seasons. And I feel like it's been to no avail. That's the only reason why I'm a little hesitant. I don't not like the pick. I think Chuba is a very good running back too. If you have him as your number 1 running back, you might be in a little bit of trouble. But I just think that there are some factors that could take away some carries from him and some snaps from him.
Yeah, if Dowdle comes in and has a couple big games, either in a tandem role or let's say Chuba goes down for a week, that could present some volatility. But let's say they're factoring in 100 carries for Rico going into the year, or let's say it's 125 or something like that. That means Chuba probably gets like 20 or 30 less carries than he did last year, which I think if that's what you're getting, that justifies where he's being drafted at currently. I guess with me, it's like I'm looking at a guy who has made the most of his opportunities in previous seasons, and he's a guy who can give you a full season's workload, even if he doesn't necessarily play a full season's worth of games. 15 games is pretty close, so maybe like I'm splitting hairs a little bit, but valid concerns that you have as far as the timeshare goes there potentially in Carolina. Who's your pick for sleeper?
Well, I feel like I went with a real sleeper here, and I'm going with a rookie. I'm going with Caleb Johnson. Iowa product with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
And the reason I'm going with him is because just look at that running back room right now, and it's Jaylen Warren, who was injured most of the year last year, but he had a straight split with Najee. With Najee, I feel like getting a little more of the lead until the end of the year. And Kenneth Gainwell, who we haven't really seen much of just because Saquon was solidifying all those carries last year. I think Caleb Johnson has a unique he's a unique fit for this offense. I think they need someone that's quick out of the backfield and can take those plays and make them electric. And, if you make a few electric plays, the fans are going to want you to keep being on the field, and they might kind of hear that and keep putting him on the field. I think that Rodgers has been big and dumping off later in his career, and Caleb Johnson fits that mold very well. You look at him, he had 22 touchdowns last year. He knows how to find the end zone, obviously, with Iowa, but he had 240 attempts. He can run the ball. Receiving, he had 22 receptions, so he's not someone that can't catch the ball either. I see a lot of comparisons to him being Darren Sproles, and while I don't want to say he's a Darren Sproles because Darren Sproles wasn't a RB1 per se, I do see you're looking at a 21-year-old running back who's probably one of the fastest players on this team, and they're going to have to figure out some other ways to get Rodgers to get down the field besides just looking at DK. Obviously, I don't think Calvin Austin's that great, and they have Robert Woods who, he's 33, 34 years old. What is he going to show this year? So I think a little combo of Jaylen Warren, Caleb Johnson, maybe draft Caleb Johnson as like an RB3, but I think his ceiling can be an RB2.
I like your pick. I like your pick. Not who I would have had. I didn't really have him on my radar, but I think it's more likely that he takes over the full workload there than Jaylen Warren. You probably still see Jaylen Warren mix in on like passing downs, but in terms of red zone threat, like who they're going to be relying on inside the 20 and on early downs, it's probably going to be Caleb Johnson. Aaron Rodgers likes to throw the ball a lot, so maybe he's checking out of runs inside the 5, inside the 10 a bunch. But yeah, I like your pick. And I think if you look at the Steelers too, like them loading up on tight ends, like maybe you see a lot of 2 tight end personnel sets where they're just trying to ground and pound and be heavy and run the damn ball and use the pass against that instead of the other way around, which is how a lot of NFL offenses work nowadays. I like that. That's not what I didn't have him on my radar, not out of left field, I would say fully, because I think people smarter than I am, like you, are looking at him and salivating a little bit. So
I'm
thanks
just
for the
looking at him
insight.
being like a Bucky Irving type player, like someone that
Yeah,
doesn't really show up at the beginning of the year, but once he keeps making these plays game in, game out, he's going to start getting those carries. And I just feel like he's one of those players that could come up on a lot of people's draft boards. And if you're looking for a sleeper, might as well take a chance on a rookie and an offense that's probably going to win 9 games.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. Receiver is next. EJ, my friend, you are up.
This one was a little bit difficult for me.
Yeah, this was tough.
I ended up going with Drake London. And it's not because I don't like Drake London. I am a huge Drake London fan. And honestly, looking at the stats when Penix was quarterback those last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, Drake London was, I think, the highest percent target share at like 39%, something crazy like that. Um, I just don't think Penix is going to be that good this year. And if they have to go back and forth with Kirk and Penix, I'm just not sure how well this offense is going to mold. I think this is going to be a very run heavy first offense and then try to get the deep throws, kind of like what Denver did last year. And I just can't get behind London getting the volume he got with a quarterback like Kirk. I just don't see Penix being able to at least put up those same numbers to him. And I don't think Drake London's someone that's going to complain about it. So I don't think it's going to end up being like a big deal, but at least on a fantasy perspective, it could cause him to take a dip.
Interesting. Yeah, I did not. You're surprising me now, I think, with most of your picks. This was like your guy in fantasy last year. So I'm kind of shook. And
Yeah, you look at him, he had 100 receptions last year, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. Obviously, all those are career highs. He's going into a contract year. Well, I think they picked up his 5th-year option.
yeah,
He's going into year 4.
everybody's telling me that if Penix is even like sort of okay, this guy's gonna be jumping off the charts with the production. But I can see it if there's like a little bit, if Penix can't quite sniff it and they're going back between him and Kirk, maybe both of them underwhelm, and then you're in a situation where, like, yeah, the volume is there, but how what does that volume look like in terms of touchdowns? Like if he's not getting into the end zone, if Bijan's taking all those from him, or you know, maybe Kyle Pitts finally has the year that people have been waiting for since he came into the league. Um, Darnell Mooney's kind of underrated too. It wouldn't surprise me if he finished as more like a wide receiver too, but this is I think the riskiest pick you've had so far.
Yeah, I just think where he's getting drafted, he's kind of a low wide receiver 1 right now, and I see him more of a wide receiver 2 this year.
Like a high two.
Yeah, like I
Kinda.
see AJ Brown outperforming him. I see Lad McConkey outperforming him. I see T Higgins, outperforming him.
That's a great way of looking at it, actually. When you look at the other receivers who may jump him from being back to full health or having better years this year, there's Brown, there's McConkey, there's Higgins, there's Puka, there's Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, maybe.
Could even throw Marvin Harrison, depending on how well you think Arizona is going to do.
Yeah.
You see a lot of year 2 receivers kind of shine, and Harrison could be just another one of those guys.
Yeah. I get why you went with it now. I get why you went with it. My choice here is this might be just as risky, actually. I'm going with Tyreek Hill. It pains me to say it, but I think that Tyreek Hill's fantasy, like there was a while where he was so reliable, you could just count on him no matter what. It was like an afterthought. You didn't have to think about whether or not Tyreek Hill was going to show up for you, but I think that's gone. I don't know if we'll ever get back to that, because right now he's in a situation where he has the most volatile quarterback situation in the league in terms of health, outside of maybe Indianapolis, probably, with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. Like, I don't know how many games Tua is going to play. I don't know if he's going to crumple into pieces on the ground as soon as he gets hit hard. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if the Dolphins are going to fire their head coach 6 weeks into the season if they suck off the bat. He's been asking for a trade already for like a year on and off. And he had a surgically repaired wrist in the offseason. And he was slower last year. And he's over 30. It's like, when you keep adding so many ands to this conversation, the list of reasons against drafting him high continue to add up, whether it's health, regression, dysfunction, who's going to be throwing him footballs. There's just too many question marks, and that sucks, because if you don't draft him, odds are he still probably has like 2 or 3 weeks in a year where he has like a 30-point performance and you wish that you had him on your team. But I think this is the year where, going off of last year too, it's just not worth it. Like, I don't know what the Dolphins are going to do. It's a situation where I'm kind of staying away from all their players, to be honest. Like even Shane, I don't really know how to feel about this year. Yeah, man, it's a weird situation. And again, it sucks because he used to be one of my favorite fantasy players, even when he was in Kansas City with Mahomes. And as a Patriots fan, I'm thinking, how are we going to beat these guys down the stretch? But I think the fantasy heyday of Tyreek Hill is in the rearview mirror by a considerable margin, actually. So him being ADB 13 right now in ESPN's system is, just want to give a word for the wise, just a warning to anybody picking him high out there. That's all.
Agreed. I think he's more of a wide receiver. I don't know, man. I mean, there's a lot of outside noise that comes with Tyreek Hill, and it's definitely escalated over the last few years since he got to Miami, really. But yeah, the whole thing, like if they start losing at the beginning of the year, then that might just be the whole thing where he's not trying, not running on routes. Like I think it can really escalate. So that's someone I would like to stay away from as well.
I'll put it to you this way, EJ. Do you think there is a wide receiver in the top, like, let's say top 20 right now, not named Rashee Rice, that has a higher separation between what their ceiling could look like if everything works out versus what their floor will look like if everything goes wrong than Tyreek Hill? That's a long question, but Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. No, now that I'm looking at it, no. I don't think anyone has a lower floor than what Tyreek could have.
But at the same time, if somehow Tua stays healthy for a whole year and the Dolphins offense is back to what it was 2, 3 years ago, this is probably a top 5 receiver.
The
But
only one I could think is DJ Moore.
yeah, DJ would be probably the other one.
Just because I have Rasheed Rice at 20 on mine and DJ Moore at 21, so I'm just flip flopping him. And I could
Gotcha.
see DJ taking regression with Oduzne maybe taking the top spot.
Yeah. But I think that's like, if you're having a look into the mid 20s for other guys to compare him to, then that's telling you all you need to know. Like the forecast is already there. It's just a matter of how likely it is.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. So I'm going to pick again here. This time I'm going to go with a sleeper receiver. This might be my favorite pick actually in this whole thing. And I think that's kind of ironic because I am picking the current speedy receiver in Kansas City after picking a former Kansas City Chiefs speedy wide receiver. I'm going with Xavier Worthy here. And to me, I'm factoring in a few things. One, I think that this year you see him leap Travis Kelce in overall target share. Two, he already led the Chiefs in red zone targets last year, and he got quite a few rushing touches as well. We've heard all off season about how the Chiefs want to go back to being the high flying, scary downfield passing attack offense that Mahomes used to operate under. And I think that it's also likely that we see Kelce have his workload managed again this year. He was great last year, still led the team in targets, was a top 6 tight end, even though he had an off year, quote unquote, but was a great blocker. What's his name? Noah Gray, their backup tight end, had a pretty good year coming in as well, especially second half of the year, had a lot of production for him. So to me, it's like, if the Chiefs are looking for a big play every single week, at least one, this is going to be the guy they're going to try to factor in to the game plan. They're probably not going to have one play for him week to week like that. They're probably going to have 4 or 5. It's just a matter of how they can set up those looks, how they can put him into positions to make something happen on the field. Do I think he's going to be a 100 catch guy or a 1,000-yard receiver? Probably not. But I think he gives you enough boom at ADP 23 right now in ESPN system to where if he catches fire early and Mahomes rides the momentum of it, and this guy keeps getting better over the course of the season, like we've seen Chiefs receivers do over the course of their career, this is a guy who could be a top 10 receiver in the league. He was wide receiver 8 from week 11 on last year. He averaged over 2 yards per route run, over 14 and a half fantasy points per game. I am really excited to see what we get from Xavier Worthy this year. And I think if he does take off, like I'm talking about, you could see the Chiefs kind of reignite that offensive spark that they used to have. And, you know, I don't want to get into Super Bowl talk and everything right now, but I think they really need that to get back to where they were before last year.
Agreed. I love that pick. I think he has a super high ceiling, especially with Rasheed Rice being out. But even when Rasheed Rice comes back, I think that even opens it up a little more for Worthy to kind of go downfield, but also get those quick underneath routes and kind of take it the distance from there. So, yeah, I think that's a great pick.
Trying to see. He had last year, out of all receivers over the course of the entire year, he was 11th in red zone targets. And that's coming after guys like Jordan Addison, Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Drake London. Like if that could very easily go up in year 2. I mean, they basically ignored him the first 3 weeks of the season last year. And then after that second half on, it was like, all right, this is a guy. We need to use him.
Agreed.
Okay. Tight end is next. Is there anybody else?
I got to do my
Oh
my
yeah.
sleeper.
I'm sorry. I did not mean to skip over you. Go ahead.
That's okay. My sleeper finished wide receiver 27 last year. He's getting drafted at 41 right now.
I
It's
think I
Juwan Jennings.
yeah, I know who you're dude, that was my backup. I love it.
Juwan Jennings, I think, is going to have a big season for San Fran. You look at you look at the wide receiver room right now, and it's Brandon Ayuk, who's not going to be healthy. It's Ricky Pearsall, who I believe is not healthy right now either.
Correct.
Kittle, who's a year older. Obviously, he's a top tight in the league, but you're not really looking at a lot of other options for Purdy to throw the ball to. And unless McCaffrey's going to have a big season, which you can't count on, Purdy's going to have to throw the ball. And Jennings is that big target that was getting 10 plus targets per week when he was activated. And that was with Debo. So I think that Jennings is due for a big year, bigger than what he did last year. I love him, and as I think he has a high ceiling, being like honestly a pretty high wide receiver 2, and he's being drafted in that wide receiver 3 range right now. So I love this pick over here. If you can get him this late in the draft.
Yeah, that is a phenomenal pick and someone I was really thinking about using as my pick uh, going into this exercise. Last year, he led the 49ers in red zone targets, all of them. He had a 25% target share from like week 8 on, which is insane. I mean, anybody in the league who's 25% or higher, I mean, that's your like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, Drake London. Like those guys are in that stratosphere. So I'm not necessarily saying he's going to be like a top end wide receiver 1, but I think him being a low end wide receiver 1 is definitely on the table if the Niners can stay healthy. If you get a good McCaffrey season, Kittle can stay relatively healthy, I think you see some great production from Juwan Jennings, essentially as a combo of like a wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. And I think there's even a chance he just outright leapfrogs Ayuk for that role and remains his wide receiver 1 for the whole season. Yeah, that's a solid one, man. And even if there are injuries, like that's even better for him. The only real question mark with him right now is, are they going to trade him? Because he's asking for a contract extension. He's really pushing the button on it, like really, really forcing the issue. And we've seen how that's affected this team in the last several years with different guys, whether it's Debo, Ayuk last year, whatever, Greenlaw. Like, yeah, the only thing that would prevent me from doing that is if he ends up on a different team and his role changes elsewhere. But maybe other teams will value him a little more properly. I love the pick. I love the pick. Like totally, totally justifiable. Him being wide receiver 40 right now is insane. He should be getting picked at least 15 picks higher than that, at least.
Yeah, I feel like there's a ton, at least in the wide receiver room, that you can kind of make an argument for. But I mean, this is, in my opinion, at week 1, he's going to be their wide receiver 1. So why not take the guy that's getting wide receiver 1 targets this low in the draft?
And maybe some of it does have to do with that contract situation. I mean, Terry McLaurin was a top 5 receiver last year, and he's being picked outside the top 10 too. That's another guy who, if there's no potential trade smoke, people are probably picking him where he should be picked too. Tight end is next. Yeah.
Yes, sir. This is a pretty easy one for me.
It is? Okay. Go ahead.
I'm going with the old guy, Travis Kelce.
Oof.
And I know you were saying he's what you're getting from Kelce every year. But when he runs those routes, man, he just looks so slow. And you kind of saw in the playoffs, like what happened to him in those games, kind of just got taken out of the picture a few times. And I know Rasheed Rice is going to be on the table for a little bit, but you're getting Xavier Worthy, you're getting a hopefully healthy Hollywood Brown. You still have Juju over there, and you have Noah Gray, who they do like Noah Gray. So I just think there's a lot of options for the Chiefs to go to, and with Kelsey getting another year older, another year slower, he might play a bunch, but I think he's going to be more in that blocking, like a lot of blocking. Maybe he does a rollout after that, but I think he's going to be more of a protection for Mahomes rather than going out on those routes, getting those 20-yard catches and taking it another 30 yards. I think we've seen the last of that from Kelsey. I think it's Noah Gray's time to shine. I think he's going to take over the reins. I just think that Kelsey could probably be maybe a top 15, but I think taking him this high at number 6, 76 overall, I think Andrews will outperform him. I'm looking at someone like Evan Ingram, who did have a down year last year, but kind of being in that offense, he can outperform him. I think there's other players you can look at that will take a leap over Kelsey this year.
That's one of those picks where I feel like people have been trying to be early to the Travis Kelsey falls off party for a few years, and now it's like, well, I don't want to be late either. So I understand it. Like, the writing was a little bit on the wall last year, and if he has that same kind of production, then good for him. He'll still be a top 10 tight end, but there are going to be people out there who are still expecting him to be like a top 2 or 3 tight end, and if he's just a half step under that, he's still under that. So him getting picked at, what did you say, 6 right now?
Yeah, 76 overall.
Yeah, like you're just basically saying if he ends up as a low end tight end 1 or a high end tight end 2, that's still a drop off in performance from him, and would be one of his lower output seasons really of the last like decade. I mean, I'm with you, and like I really debated picking him as well. I think me picking Xavier Worthy as my sleeper receiver in a way is kind of agreeing with you too. But at the same time, it's really hard for me to fully count him out because I think that there is enough familiarity and continuity there between he and Mahomes that, whenever there's a situation where he's going to need a big throw to a guy, it's going to be to Kelsey. It's just a matter of how many times he's getting that a season. How many times are you getting him, third down inside the 10 on the year? How many times are you going to get him third and medium, third and long, whatever? Like, that's really what you're looking at. I don't think he's going to be a guy that they're looking to on first and second down as much. So his target share going down maybe to closer to like 20% instead of above 20%.
Well, you kind of look at it the last few years. He went from 2022, 78 first downs, 2023, 50, last year, 46, 12 touchdowns in 2022, 5 in 23, 3 in 24. It's just and the yards, obviously, 1,300, 985, 823. It's just on the downhill slope. So unless he gets one more revival in his career, then maybe, yeah, sure. But as of right now, I don't think you can count on him as high as he's being targeted.
And the other thing that you're not thinking about, the other thing that we haven't mentioned too is, and I guess we did kind of mention it with the age, but this isn't your average 30-plus-year-old guy. This is a guy who's played in the Super Bowl, 5 of the last 6 seasons, right?
He's going to be 36.
He's playing 20 plus games a year for 5, 6 seasons. That's a whole extra season's worth of games, essentially, with that many playoff games. So, in a way, playing time wise, he's an extra year older than what he is on paper. Just because you lose in the Super Bowl, that doesn't make your offseason any shorter. You're still going there. And when you're going there 3-4 years in a row, like that adds up. So, man, yeah, that's tough. We've hit on Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey and Xavier Worthy. We're bidding adieu to the old Chiefs and ushering in the new ones all in one full swoop.
It's that time, man. Father time catches up to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my tight end pick. Man, I don't feel awesome about any of these, but I feel better about my tight end sleepers. But I am going to pick a tandem here. I'm going with Jonnu Smith and Pat Fryermuth. I don't I don't think either one of them will necessarily have a bad year per se in terms of what they deliver when called upon, but I do think they're going to take lots of targets away from each other. You may see lots of two tight end sets on the field, but if that's the case, that means that there's two underneath targets taking attention away from DK Metcalf, or two guys in the red zone taking attention away from DK Metcalf too, that can operate as um, decoys, if you will, where maybe Aaron has a little bit more leeway in the back corner of the end zone for Metcalf if he wants. So I just don't really know what Pittsburgh's plan is. They could be a run first team still. Maybe those guys are essentially their wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, but I don't want to be counting on that either. And I think this could be a situation where, like, with both of those guys there week to week, one is the focal point versus the other. So picking just one of them is really risky. And in what, like, sorry if I'm not playing in a two tight end league. I'm sure there are some out there, but I don't really think many people are going to be flexing either Jonnu Smith or Pat Fryermuth in standard leagues. So it's just like a question of what can you expect from one guy when you know that the other guy is going to be a factor in the passing game as well, and a pretty big one. Like, those three guys are more likely than not going to be wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, DK, Smith, Fryermuth. I might be missing a guy on the Steelers depth chart that I'm not thinking of. If I am, I apologize. I know that they still have what's his name, the kid that they drafted last year, the rookie out of Washington, Roman Wilson. They still have Robert Woods there. They have Calvin Austin the third, but like none of those guys are proven yet. Scotty Miller, Ben Skowronek, like the writing is on the wall here. It's Fryermuth and Smith are going to be competing with each other for targets every single week. And if they are in a situation where both of them are operating as tight end ones with production, then you're seeing something you haven't seen consistently on the field in the NFL, basically since Aaron Hernandez and Gronkowski were playing together, which is like 10 years ago. That was a rant, but
I mean, not just the tandem for them, but also their quarterback. What are you going to get from him? So that's
too.
a whole other thing. If he gets injured, let's say, then you have Mason Rudolph, and that's going to lower their value even more.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that was a very long-winded rant from yours, truly. But any other reservations on that, EJ?
No, it was a tough one, at least for the tight end market. I think the tight end market's probably the most accurate. So those are probably the two best ones in the top 10 that you could choose.
I actually think there's the most variance in the tight ends within, like, to a point. Outside of the top 5, I feel like you could trade positions with so many guys from like 6 to like 20 something that you just don't really know what to expect. Like, the other guy that I would have taken would have been David Njoku, just because, like, if he's healthy, great, but who's going to be throwing him footballs in Cleveland? Can he stay on the field? I don't know. I've got to pick my sleeper.
Yes, sir.
Okay. My gut wants me to go with Tucker Kraft, who is tight end 12 as far as ESPN ADP goes, and was the red zone target leader for the Packers last year. But my heart wants me to go with the New England Patriots' Hunter Henry, who is at ADP 22 right now. I will say this: the worst finish of his career in the NFL, which is almost a 10-year career at this point, is tight end 21. He also had one season where he missed the whole year. Otherwise, he's typically a top 10 tight end, sometimes even a top 8. This is a guy who is Drake May's favorite receiver. He's the guy he threw to the most last year. He has some familiarity with going into this year. It's probably going to be a red zone target again this year. I don't know what the Patriots are going to be. I don't know how many games they're going to win. I don't know what that offense is going to look like. But Drake May is going to be there from the start of the year. He's going to start every game as long as he's healthy. Josh McDaniels is back into the offense, running the show. We know how much he values the tight end, how much he likes to factor that position into the offense. And he's worked with Henry before. Like, he was the guy who originally brought Henry into Foxborough when it was Mac Jones still in town. Like, this is the guy that McDaniels wanted in the building when he was last here. So to me, him being tight end 22 right now, I could easily see him finishing 10 spots ahead of that, because that's where he's been over the last several years, is in that high end tight end 2, low end tight end 1 range. Again, I don't know what to expect from the Pats. I don't know what their offense is going to look like. I understand why he and Stephon Diggs are going as low as they are, because like they haven't really been a fantasy relevant team for the last couple of years, but they're going to be this year. And Henry is going to be probably, in the passing game at least, one of the 2 or 3 most important parts of that.
Agreed. I like Hunter Henry. I feel like I always pick him up whenever I need a tight end for a week, just because he's great matchup wise. But another year with Drake May should be able to help him out. They don't have too many weapons, at least, to kind of take away from targets going to him. And he makes big catches. He's not really someone that's going to drop a ton of balls, so he's a reliable target for Drake May to throw to.
Hell yeah.
I went with my Giants for my sleeper pick. I went with Theo Johnson.
Theo Johnson,
And
okay.
hear me out. Pat Freiermuth with Russell Wilson last year. 65 receptions, 653 yards, 7 touchdowns. And you look at Theo Johnson, who, let me just say, the Giants brass loves. He immediately took over for Daniel Bellinger, who was their starting tight end for the first 2 years. He had 29 receptions, 331 yards, 1 touchdown. I see very high, I don't want to see very high target share, but I kind of see it going, obviously, Malik number 1. And I think Theo Johnson could be that number 2 target share guy. And that's only because Russ, I feel like, likes throwing the ball to his tight ends. When he doesn't see anything open on the outsides, he doesn't really look toward the middle of the field. He dumps it off to his tight ends. And McLeod's kind of like a shifty, faster tight end that can get in open space and make a few people miss. He's going into year 2. I just think getting drafted 31st and 224, people are seeing him as like a low tight end too, whereas I could see him being a top 15 tight end by end season. I think those touchdown numbers are definitely going to go up. I think his yards are going to go up a little bit. He doesn't have much competition. Like I said, Daniel Bellinger might get cut this year. So the other guy, there, Chris Manhart's tight end too. He's a blocking tight end. He does not run routes. So he doesn't really have competition at anyone else in the tight end room. The only thing that would be taking away is obviously Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, and Wan'Dale Robinson. So I think Theo going into year 2, I think he has a lot of support from the team, a lot of support from his quarterback, and I think he's due to have a nice season for the Giants.
That is another guy who I really did not have on my radar, but I think now that I'm actually looking at it, I totally get where your head's at with it, especially when you factor in the Russ stats with the tight ends last year. Maybe some of that is kind of dependent on who the quarterback is. You don't really, obviously, if Jameis is in, he's probably going to be throwing more balls down the field. If Jackson Dart is in, things are probably going to look a little bit different. But yeah, if Theo can come in and essentially give you like 3-4 catches a game, which looks like it could be on the table, one, that's not really that high of a workload to expect. It's something that can be pretty consistent week to week without asking for too much. And if he does satisfy that, and let's say he gives you a couple of performances where he actually gets into the end zone, where he didn't last year, pair that with a couple of performances where maybe he has bad weeks, he's probably going to be like a mid-tier tight end too, possibly. He could even be like higher than that. So
and you look where
going
most
at
of his
41 right now, that makes a lot of sense.
And where most of his production is coming from was with Daniel Jones last year. I mean, once you got to the whole Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito era, he was kind of a lost cause. but he made some good plays. His only touchdown of the year was a 35-yard touchdown from Daniel Jones, and they did capitalize on a few other longer gains. So, I think that it's hard to look at the Giants because once Daniel Jones was benched and then cut, like no one on that offense did well except for Malik Neighbors and garbage time. So it's going to be weird to actually see what this offense looks like with, an NFL veteran QB. And an offense that I would say like they don't have the worst weapons, and if that offensive line stays healthy, it's an average offensive line. They should be able to give Russ some time to go through his progression. So, that's someone I think is getting lowballed. I think he's going to have a much better season than what the predictions say.
Yeah, that's a great pick, and honestly, like that is to this point probably the biggest sleeper, quote unquote, that we've heard. Like that's a name I had to go. Sorry, who? I was not familiar with the Giants tight end one off the top of my head. I actually immediately I was like Darren Waller, and then I was like, no, wait, he got traded from the Giants. He's in Miami.
That is a Dolphin.
that's a Dolphin. Yeah. Okay. Some interesting picks here. Is there anybody else you want to give a hat tip to? Anybody at all? Any position that we didn't mention that you have on your list that you want to give a minute or two of your time to?
I mean, Cooper Kupp's getting drafted pretty low, and I think he could have a great comeback season with Sam Darnold. It'll obviously be dependent on how Darnold does, but I like him where his ADP is at. And Josh Downs, I know they don't have a great quarterback situation, but I love Josh Downs, so I'm hoping he has a good year.
Okay. A couple extra throw-ins there, if you will. I think I've probably given my fair share, so to speak. I also just don't have anybody else I feel that extremely confident about at the moment. But yeah, man, there's some interesting choices out there. I guess stay away from Rome Odunze. Pick Luther Burden or Colston Loveland instead. Those guys are going to be factoring into the offense way more for the Bears, I think. They'll be way more consistent and reliable. That's all I got. All right. Fifth and Long fans, thanks for tuning in. Best of luck in your fantasy drafts and this fantasy season. We are going to have some more fantasy content coming for you before the season kicks off. EJ, this was great, man. Thanks for hopping on. Thanks for giving me an hour or so of your time to talk a little football.
Patrick, always a pleasure.
Awesome. Fifth and Long fans, we'll catch you next time right here on Fifth and Long Podcast.
Let's go.